This is in hopes that I don't clear my throat every 2 minutes or 2 seconds like I usually do. All right. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
As I was saying earlier, it's going to be spring real soon, so get ready. So I begin with this statement or assumption that all beings are worthy. Worthy of what? We'll go into that a bit. This came out of a conversation or encounter that I had at work recently with around the lunch table, at the hospital. And somebody had brought up that the fact that I'm a Buddhist. And he said, do you still go to that temple? I said, yes. And then someone else across from me, a nurse across from me, asked, what made you convert to that? And she was looking at me real suspiciously, that, where did that come from, And I felt a little embarrassed, I thought, don't I just emanate that I'm a Buddhist? Isn't it obvious? And apparently it's not obvious. So I also thought in any country, any place where there's a dominant religion, to be of a different faith, or, a minority faith of some sort, is going to be looked on a little differently, with a little askance, a little suspicion, if you will. And I thought this too. I thought sometimes I think, who do I think I am doing this? What's going on here? Not one of my family members is a Buddhist, not one. If anything, they're all conservative Christians, largely from the South. And many of them, pray for me quite often. So, and I think in respect to my family, what am I doing here? What is this that I'm doing? Am I trying to rock the boat? Am I being disrespectful or something like that? And going further into it, am I even the kind of person who is worthy of training the mind, which is a big part of Buddhism, at least the path that I'm following? Who am I to think that I can even put one foot on the Eightfold Path, let alone commit to following the Eightfold Path? I'm not someone who always has the best intentions. I'm not someone who always lives ethically and follows the precepts to a T. And given that, can I really expect to develop a good mind, let alone manifest the possibility that the Buddha taught, that if you follow the path, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, that you can at some point reach nirvana in this lifetime, this very lifetime. So, don't we all wonder from time to time, am I good enough? Am I disciplined enough? Do people like me? That sort of, so the question is, are you worthy? Are you worthy? And what I want to use as a parable of sorts is, talk about the story of Aṅgulimāla. He's not a character, he's a presence, actually a monk ultimately, in the Pali Canon. The Pali Canon being the words and teachings of the Buddha as passed down through oral tradition and finally written down. Now, the term, that word, Aṅgulimāla, this guy named Aṅgulimāla, that word means finger necklace. So just think of that, a necklace of fingers. And we're going to get into that. So he was the dreaded and feared robber and murderer who terrorized towns and villages in the Buddhist time, in a certain area, not all of India, but in that certain area. So the man who would later become and be named or called Aṅgulimāla was born to a well-off Brahmin family, the highest class in Indian caste system. But he was born under the robber constellation. So in Indian astrology, there must be this robber constellation that you can be born under. And because of his horoscope, it was feared that he would become a robber later on in life, or even possibly a murderer, because that's the possibility of that narrative that goes along with being born under that constellation. Now, Angulimala's father, upon Angulimala's birth, conferred with the king of the region. Should he just be killed now and to avoid later misdeeds? No, the king instructed, no, let him be raised peacefully and well educated. This may drive out any evil tendencies in him. So, to help further that aim, Angulimala's father named him Ahimsaka. Remember the term ahimsa, meaning, to do no harm, to be harmless to others. So Ahimsaka, meaning harmless. So he named his son Harmless. Hopefully the name Ahimsaka would help the boy become a peaceful and beneficent person. Ahimsaka was sent to the best university and was accepted by the best teacher at the highest university in the land. And he was educated well. That teacher ultimately took Ahimsaka under his wing and treated him as a son, fed him. He lived at his house with his family. And Ahimsaka became a star student. He was, head of the class and quickly became the teacher's favorite. So much so that other students felt neglected and forgotten. That the teacher's just spending all of his time with Ahimsaka. Geez, we don't get any attention anymore. It's hard to get office hours with him. You can't, he doesn't stay after class and answer questions and stuff. He just hangs out with Ahimsaka and they just have a good old time, and he teaches only him, it seems. These jealous students plotted to drive a wedge between Ahimsaka and his teacher. So they thought, if we could somehow separate them and get our teacher to somehow dislike him a bit, that he'll start paying more attention to us and not be so totally committed to just him. They schemed to plant a seed of fear or suspicion in the teacher's mind. So a group of students came to the teacher one day and said, "We have good reason, teacher, to believe that Ahimsaka is plotting against you." The teacher scolded them and said, "How dare you talk about my son like this," and tossed them out. Then, a few days later, a second group of students came up to the teacher and reinforced the suspicion. They said, "The well-respected student Ahimsaka has evil plans. He hopes to push you out of your position with the university." And lastly, a third group of students reported the same story to the teacher. The teacher thought, well, maybe it's true. I mean, everybody's saying it's true. Maybe I have a problem here. I need to protect myself. The teacher, ultimately grew to be fully suspicious of Ahimsaka and fearful of Ahimsaka. He became determined in thought to get rid of Ahimsaka, even to kill him or have him killed. He decided he would conspire to put Ahimsaka in deadly and dangerous circumstances. He summoned Ahimsaka, saying, "It is time for the student to honor his teacher and the teachings by giving him an appropriate gift." Ahimsaka replied, "Of course, I will do that exactly, Master. What gift shall I give?" The teacher became silent and solemn, and with great gravity he delivered these words. He said, "You must bring me 1,000 human fingers strung in a garland. With this gift, your homage to the teachings will be complete, and you will be able to reap the rewards and benefits of all the teachings you have accrued over these years. The teacher expected that Ahimsaka would have to kill in order to achieve this, right? Not just simply subdue people and cut their fingers off and put them on a string, but he'd have to sometimes do away with them, and oftentimes do away with them. Ahimsaka resisted, saying that he came from a peaceful family and a harmless family. Such a way of life would destroy his reputation and his family's reputation. His teacher said, "Unless you do this, unless I receive this gift from you, all of your teaching will come to nothing. You will not benefit in the least from any of my teaching." All knowing that the possibility was that Ahimsaka himself would be killed in trying to carry out this duty. But Ahimsaka was a well-trained to respect and obey his guru. He would do whatever the guru asked, most often without question. But also, maybe the power of Ahimsaka's horoscope had a bigger influence than some thought. That robber constellation planted the smallest impulse within Ahimsaka toward violence. Ahimsaka began to have subtle thoughts of being hyper-masculine and dominant over others. A certain past life that Ahimsaka had lived had brought this terrible karma also, that Ahimsaka could possibly have the potential to become superhuman in strength and develop this desire to kill. Ahimsaka, harmless, his name, committed his whole being to fulfilling his teacher's wish to receive a necklace of human fingers and Aṅgulimāla. Ahimsaka set out with a sword and club. He developed the cunning needed to overcome, hunt, and kill innocent villagers. Quickly, his reputation as a murderer and robber grew. He was no longer Ahimsaka. He was called Aṅgulimāla by all villagers. And imagine the fear instilled by such a criminal in your community. For years, the countryside was terrorized. People went about their day with one eye looking out for Aṅgulimāla. Aṅgulimāla had gathered many fingers over the years and wore them as a necklace. He didn't hide the fact that he was gathering these fingers. He used that to instill fear. He meant to present the visage of a murderous monster. Ultimately, Aṅgulimāla had finally gathered 999 fingers on his necklace. He needed just one more. His mother had learned of this murdering criminal, Aṅgulimāla, and she, of course, knew of the constellation and the possibility of somebody growing up to be a murderer and a murderer and a robber. And she surmised that, we sent him off to university. We haven't heard from him in years. This could possibly be my son, who's Aṅgulimāla. So she set out to confront him and, with her motherly charms, possibly convince him to give up his evil ways and come back to his home. The Buddha also learned of Aṅgulimāla. The Buddha saw into the original heart of Aṅgulimāla. The Buddha thought that even this supremely evil man had a renunciant's nature within him. He may well renounce everything and follow the Dharma if provided a skillful teaching. And the Buddha also knew that Aṅgulimāla's mother was traveling to see her son. And he knew that Aṅgulimāla was not above killing his own mother to add that last finger to his necklace. But the sin of matricide at this time was saw as this: to kill one's mother would bring immediate rebirth in the lowest of all hells. And Aṅgulimāla knew this too. So he mulled this over. The Buddha went down the same road, traveled the same road that Aṅgulimāla's mother was walking. And Aṅgulimāla had seen his mother traveling down the path. He was hiding behind in the forest. And he mulled this over whether to kill her, weighing the horrible cost and the glorious, at least in his mind, the glorious benefit. He then saw the Buddha walking peacefully and slowly along the road, a bit before his mother. And he thought, aha, a meek contemplative, a monk. What an easy target. I will kill him and choose one of his fingers to complete my Aṅgulimāla. Aṅgulimāla took off at high speed. Keep in mind, Aṅgulimāla had previously subdued elephants running at full speed. Aṅgulimāla had captured tigers running at full speed and killed them. He knew that this would be an easy task. Aṅgulimāla ran after the Buddha, who remained calm and remained walking slowly along the path. But Aṅgulimāla, somehow he could not catch up with him. As fast as he ran, the Buddha, somehow walking slowly, was always just out of his reach. And this perplexed Aṅgulimāla to no end. But he ran faster and faster still, and yet he could not reach the Buddha. He could not grab the Buddha and catch him, smack him with the club, and do away with him. He could not do this. So finally, Aṅgulimāla shouted, "Stop, contemplative, stop!" He was out of breath. And from the text of the Aṅgulimāla Sutta, it goes on to say this. Maybe we should put our hands in Hapjang to hear these words, the words of the Buddha. I have stopped, Aṅgulimāla. You stop. Then the bandit Aṅgulimāla thought, these monks, these followers of the Sakya clan in Siam, speak truth, assert truth. But this monk is walking, yet he says, I have stopped. Aṅgulimāla, you stop too. Suppose I just take a minute and question this monk. Then he addressed the Blessed One in stanzas thus. While you are walking, monk, you tell me you have stopped. But now, when I have stopped, you say I have not stopped. I ask you now, O monk, what is the meaning of it? How is it that you have stopped and I have not? The Blessed One replied, Aṅgulimāla, I have stopped forever, forswearing violence to every living being. But you have no restraint towards things that breathe. So that is why I have stopped and you have not. When he heard the Buddha's words, Aṅgulimāla felt the deep blossoming of his nobler and purer urges. These impulses began to replace the cruelty that he had cultivated for so long. Aṅgulimāla's response and what followed is again tersely told in the sutta. Oh, as long last a sage revered by me, this monk has now appeared in the great forest. Indeed, I will for sure renounce all evil, hearing your stanzas showing the Dharma. So saying, the bandit took his sword and weapons and flung them into a gaping chasm's pit. The bandit worshipped at the Sublime One's feet, and then and there asked for going forth, that is, to become a monk himself. The Enlightened One, the sage of great compassion, the teacher of the world with all its gods, addressed him and said these words, Come, bhikkhu. And that was how. And that was how he became a bhikkhu. This ends this reading. So consider, even though the Buddha walked at a leisurely pace, Aṅgulimāla could not catch up with him. How is this? What does this mean? And he could not strike him with his sword and club. Running as fast as he could, Aṅgulimāla could not reach out and grab hold of Buddha. Now, isn't it amazing that this evil man who had no sense of restraint, and ending one human life after the other, continually satisfying his murderous urges, could not have his own way with this one being who had abandoned all urges toward evil. Now, I feel the Aṅgulimāla Sutta is a parable, more than a historical report. No, not that I doubt that there wasn't possibly this evil person. Aṅgulimāla, to my limited reading and such, is the one criminal who was taken into the Sangha as a monk. But I sense that the sutta tells me a little bit about what it is to be a Buddha. Aṅgulimāla was attempting to grab hold of the Tathagata. That's what the Buddha named himself after his enlightenment. No longer a person, but somebody who is the thus come one, over and over, the thus come one. He intended to do away with the awakened one. Who could ever physically or mentally grasp the Tathagata? Clinging to or trying to obtain the Buddha, the awakened, trying to obtain your awakening, trying to go out and find it and put it in your pocket, so to speak. That would be like trying to reflect the entire limitless sky in your one hand mirror. It's like, oh, I got it. No. Oh, okay, there it is. Oh, no. You can't do that. We see that Aṅgulimāla received the Buddha's teaching and was instantly recognized as a bhikkhu. He had forever stopped running after the Buddha and yelled, and no longer would yell, "Stop, contemplative, stop." So the Buddha had stopped. When you think of it, what do we mean by stopped? What is stop? He had stopped all things by abandoning evil, cultivating good, and purifying the mind. Aṅgulimāla had not stopped because he had practiced an unrestrained evil way of life. He had not abandoned even one thing, but was hooked on evil, being feared. He was hooked on intimidating others and hooked on domination. Being a Buddha is to abandon impure views, to abandon evil intent, to abandon control over others. So, now, are you worthy? Do you have anything like Aṅgulimāla's karma to overcome in order to practice this path? Do you? Probably not. I don't think so. We would have read about you in the news, I think, So, and am I worthy? The Dharma is not saved for the rich and gifted. Even the heaviest burden of karma cannot prevent you from accepting the Dharma, if you so choose. So be of good cheer. You are indeed worthy. Thank you.